wonder murmur where whispers weave the heart.
Hello, little hearts. A new whisper begins. In a valley cradled by gentle, rolling hills, where the sun should have been a friend, it had become a tyrant. A farmer named Gopi would shield his eyes and look upon his field, a mosaic of cracked, thirsty earth where golden wheat once danced. He was a kind man, with lines of worry etched around his eyes and a love for his family that was as deep as the village well. But love could not fill the empty flour sack, nor could it soothe the quiet hunger of his young daughter, Elara. "The soil is tired, my love," his wife, Anjali, would whisper at night, her voice a thread of hope wearing thin. "It is my hands that are tired," Gopi would sigh, looking at his calloused palms. "My hands are tired of pulling nothing from the earth." One sweltering afternoon, his despair felt as heavy as the humid air. He was digging at the stubborn edge of the field, more out of habit than hope, when his shovel struck something with a dull, resonant clunk. Not the sharp crack of a stone, but something deeper, hollower. Curiosity, a feeling he hadn't felt in months, stirred within him. He dug around the object, his heart beginning to beat a little faster. What he unearthed was a pot, but like none he had ever seen. It was made of a dark, smooth clay that seemed to drink the sunlight. Intricate, swirling patterns, unlike any from their village or the next, coiled around its belly. It was empty. A wave of disappointment washed over him, bitter and familiar. In a moment of pure frustration, he tossed his shovel into the pot with a clatter and went to seek the shade of a lone banyan tree, his spirit as barren as his field. He must have drifted to sleep, for when he returned, the sun was casting long golden shadows. He walked to the pot to retrieve his shovel, but stopped dead in his tracks. He blinked, then rubbed his eyes. It was impossible. Sticking out of the pot was not one shovel, but a gleaming forest of them, 100 polished wooden handles and 100 sharp steel blades, all identical to his own. "What magic is this?" he whispered, his voice trembling. He pulled one out. It was real, solid. He emptied the pot, his hands shaking, and stared at the mountain of tools. With a heart hammering against his ribs, he took a single speckled chicken egg from his pocket, the last one from their hen, and gently placed it inside. Instantly, the pot shimmered and overflowed with 100 perfect eggs. A cry of pure joy escaped his lips. "Anjali! Elara!" he shouted, hoisting the heavy pot and running home. "Our lives are about to change." That night, for the first time in a long time, the little cottage was filled not with worried whispers, but with the sounds of wonder and Elara's delighted laughter. A single apple became 100, a small loaf of bread became a feast. The magic pot, found in a field of despair, had brought them hope. Gopi was a good man, and his newfound fortune did not spoil his heart. He brought his multiplied goods to the market, baskets overflowing with beans, vibrant vegetables, and colorful textiles. He sold them at fair prices, his stall always surrounded by happy customers. He was no longer just Gopi, the poor farmer. He was Gopi, the man whose luck was as endless as his wares. But such success, like a bright flower, attracts both bees and wasps. The other merchants, their own stalls suddenly looking sparse and sad, watched him with eyes narrowed by jealousy. "It's not natural," they muttered. No man's field can produce so much. Their whispers reached the ears of a captain of the king's guard, a man with a sharp sword and an even sharper ambition. The captain followed Gopi home one evening, hiding behind a stone wall. He watched in utter astonishment as Gopi placed a single chirping chick into the pot, only for 100 fluffy chicks to burst forth, a chaotic peeping flood. The captain didn't wait to see more. He raced to the palace, his mind alight with visions of royal favor. He burst into the grand hall of King Theron, a ruler whose heart was a vault and whose only desire was the key to more treasure. "Your Majesty," the captain proclaimed, bowing low, "there is a farmer in your kingdom, a man named Gopi, who possesses a pot of endless magic. He grows richer by the day." The king's eyes, which were usually dull with boredom, flashed with a wicked, greedy light. "Magic, you say? A pot that makes riches from nothing? Such a treasure belongs to the crown, not to a dirt digger. Bring me this farmer and his pot at once." Gopi was summoned to the palace, his heart heavy with dread. He stood before the marble throne, the magic pot held tightly in his hands. The king, draped in silk and gold, looked down at him with a dismissive sneer. "So this is the source of your great fortune," the king declared, his voice echoing in the cavernous hall. "A fine treasure. I will confiscate it for the good of the kingdom." He gestured, and 2 guards moved to take the pot. "My king, be careful!" Gopi cried out, a sudden, sharp premonition seizing him. "Its magic is unpredictable." The king let out a booming laugh. "Silence, peasant! Do you think you can command a king?" Arrogantly, he snatched the pot himself, his greedy eyes peering into its dark, empty depths. He leaned further, trying to fathom its secret, his heavy golden crown tilting on his head. He lost his balance, a single clumsy stumble. With a cry of surprise, King Theron fell headfirst into the magic pot. For a moment, there was a stunned silence. Then, a hand appeared over the rim of the pot. Then another, and another, one after another. 100 identical kings, all dressed in the same silk and gold, began to climb out. They spilled into the throne room, a chaotic, ridiculous mob of royalty. "I am the real king," one shouted, pointing at another. "Liar! I am the king, seize him!" Another roared, pointing back. "Off with all of your heads!" screamed a third. Forgetting he was pointing at himself, the palace was plunged into madness. The guards were frozen, unsure of who to obey. The 100 kings began to fight amongst themselves. A flurry of fists and flying crowns, each claiming to be the one true ruler. In the midst of the pandemonium, Gopi saw his chance. He saw the beautiful, terrible magic he had unearthed and knew it was a curse upon the world. With swift, silent steps, he retrieved the pot from the floor where it had been knocked aside. Cradling it like a fragile, dangerous egg, he slipped out of the palace. He ran without stopping, leaving the city of 100 kings behind him. He ran until he reached the high cliffs that overlooked the sea, the wind whipping at his face. He held the pot up, its dark clay cool against his skin. It had saved his family from starvation, but he knew its promise of easy wealth was a lie, a trap for the greedy hearts of men. With a final desperate heave, he threw the pot off the cliff. It spun through the air, a dark teardrop against the setting sun, before smashing into 1,000 pieces on the rocks below, its magic vanishing into the sea foam forever. Gopi returned to his cottage, empty-handed, but with a heart that felt strangely light. That night, for the first time in a year, the sky broke open and rain fell upon the valley. The next morning, Gopi walked out to his field. The earth was dark and soft, smelling of life. He picked up his one real shovel, its wooden handle familiar and comforting in his grip. He plunged it into the soil. He worked until the sun was high in the sky, his body aching but his spirit soaring. His field, which had been barren for so long, began to grow again, not by magic, but by the honest sweat of his brow. Gopi learned that the land had not been cursed, only waiting for his labor. And with a kind heart, a hard-working hand, and the love of his family, he lived in a state of true wealth and happiness, a richness that no magic pot could ever hope to multiply.
Wonder murmur, the story departs, yet the whisper imparts.